So by now, everybody should know that CrossFit is a brand of fitness under Reebok. And since Adidas bought Reebok, it should tell you enough about what Adidas thinks about the potential within the sport of CrossFit. So based on my own subjective opinion, CrossFit has been founded from the idea that's originally rooted in cross training. Cross training has been invented for athletes that are involved in sports that are almost one-dimensional, like cyclists, like long-distance runners, mostly endurance sports. But the idea behind it was to counter the sheer repetition of those sports. Like ultra marathon runners can't run all the time. If they do, it becomes a bit of a taxing endeavor on the body, and the body reacts in a way that's almost counterproductive for the sport. It sort of caves in after a while. This is where chronic injuries are a big deal in those sports, because those athletes are drilled with the idea that repetition is the most important thing to them. This is also, I want to say diluted, it's also spread out into other sports as well. Soccer, golf, cricket, repetition, correct so many balls to get good at the sport, but it's not actually the truth, unfortunately. It's just what the mainstream media wants you to think, because it means that you are more likely to invest your finances in certain things like supplements to keep you going. So in fact, there's a beautiful video that I've seen once that had the King Jacques Ellis in it. It was one of his masterclasses he did in England somewhere. I think it was on Sky Sports. I don't know if that video is still online. Probably got taken off by now, because I don't think the powers that be like such content. He specifically said that he doesn't focus too much on repetition. As long as he gets enough balls in to give him the idea, the feeling, the confidence that he can perform the task, and that was it. That's enough training for him. Meanwhile, everybody else is talking about hitting so many balls against the wall. It's a bit mainstream, let's call it that. So with that in mind, everybody knows by now that Adidas is a brand, a very reputable brand that has bought Reebok. Reebok is the brand that is most renowned with sponsoring it the most renowned with CrossFit itself. In fact, CrossFit probably wouldn't be CrossFit if it wasn't for Reebok. With that in mind, you have to sort of accept that if Adidas thinks that Reebok is worth buying, it says a lot about the prospects, the potential of the brand. It says a lot about what they think the direction of CrossFit is going, how much attention it can get, how much money you can pull out of it. So if I may throw some shade, CrossFit isn't an original idea. It's brought up from a few ideas put together and wrapped in some beautiful wrapping paper. It's basically an old gift that's wrapped in some fresh wrapping paper. And presented to the public as an original idea, which isn't that bad a thing, because, well, it's brought something to the mainstream. It's brought a lot of attention to something that's been receiving very little attention for, well, a lack of interest, so to speak. Now, after throwing all that shade, the absolute genius within the industry, within the sport, is that after coming up with the idea of the CrossFit Games, they would label the winner, the male and the female, the fittest man, the fittest woman on earth, which is quite genius, even though it's not essentially true, but it's quite genius though. So you got to give them something for that. So now, without trying to throw too much shade, they have this thing called the workout of the day, which looks like a very generic workout that you can download from the internet. Something that's not specifically designed for you, but for general public and for achieving a sense of a workout. Do those workouts work? See, you can train for CrossFit. Well, you can use CrossFit as a means of training, as a means of exercise, but essentially the direction that it goes is it pushes you towards being able to compete in the CrossFit Games. Not specifically making you able to train for any direct purpose, but I guess that's what they want also. They want more people to compete in those games. They want more people to compete with the people that are pushing to compete in the games. But here's my challenge with it. Here's my issue with CrossFit though. I'm a big fan of women training to be women, men training to be men. And when you blur those lines, when you start getting men to compete in the same, women to compete in the same arena as men, using the same exercises as the men, it sort of pushes the two genders together. It becomes a competition essentially. It's like bodybuilding in a sense, where the women look like men. It's the exact same with CrossFit though. There isn't one female athlete at the top of her game in CrossFit that looks feminine. Why not? So for me personally, it's kind of very nauseating to see that this ideology is getting pushed, albeit in the subliminal manner that it is within CrossFit. It's still getting pushed. The idea that women cannot be strong and feminine at the same time, which is an absolute joke. It's a big issue for me because, well, it only pushes women in the direction that they are now given this perception, given this belief that to be strong you have to be masculine, and that's not the case. So as it stands, my big opinion is that on the prescription of exercises within CrossFit, there are far too many masculine exercises in place. It's kind of unfortunate because I don't think that CrossFit would have the same appeal if there weren't women doing snatches or cleans and jerks, or those funny kipping pull-ups, which is another big issue. I think that was only invented for the women that were unable to do actual pull-ups, actual wide grip chin-ups, actual muscle-ups. So they added this feature where you are now allowed to cheat And cheating in that sense has its benefits, but largely it's not as effective as actually doing the exercise with correct form, because now you won't be reaping the rewards, the strength rewards, the foundational rewards that keep you from getting hurt later on. You sort of jump a few steps, you skip a few, you take a shortcut on the way, which is probably the biggest reason that CrossFit has so many blunders within it. Blunders in the sense of injuries, especially at the games. I call them fails. You could research, you could find a few videos on YouTube that are specifically about the CrossFit fails. So just like with everything, there are pros and cons involved with everything. So just like with every sport, with every athletic and physical endeavor, there are pros and cons to everything. And I'm almost certain there has to be one or two, there has to be a handful of trainers inside one of these boxes that are breaking rules, breaking enough rules to direct the clients, the members, towards what is something that isn't specifically made for CrossFit, specifically to generating the body that isn't specifically made for CrossFit. The unfortunate thing with CrossFit though is that it only trains you while the workout of the days, the WODs, are usually generated so that you could end up as one of those people that are a CrossFit Games competitor. One of those things that would turn you into a CrossFit Games competitor. So it's your choice. I'm not going to lie and say that I've been to one of these CrossFit boxes. I've been turned off from the moment it started in, 2006? I could be off on that date, but it still turned me off immediately because, those workouts were a bit too generic for my liking. And when the CrossFit Games came out, I was put off then as well. For obvious reasons though. It's not fitting with my ideologies. Not that I'm dogmatic in any of those. It's just it didn't vibe with me well, and that was enough to put me off. So in closing, let's answer the most important question. Would I recommend it? Yes and no. Yes, if you are an athlete. Yes, if you have trained for a while and you need a switch up, something that would take your mind off of what you are doing for repetition within your sport. No, if you are starting out, which is a bit burdensome, which is an issue for most, because the attraction towards these CrossFit boxes for the individual that signs up for the first time is that they get to do these highly advanced moves, these power snatches, these pull-ups, these muscle ups, and they would have someone giving them the boost, giving them the pat on the back, so to speak, that they would support them on this little endeavor of theirs that is essentially just jumping the gun, taking the shortcut to what is pure athleticism. No, if you are starting out, right? No, if you don't have a foundation. No, if you are in fitness for the first time just because you find it an aesthetic attraction. So it's a big no most of the time, but it has its advantages. And with that in mind, you'd have to make your own decision. But from me, for someone that's not a trained athlete, most of the time it's a no. Blessings.
Excuse me.
How can I help you, my good man?
I need wrapping paper.
Wrapping paper?
Wrapping paper.
Oh.